For those of you who just joined us, this is the project scoping meeting for the US 101 Mabury-Berryessa and Oakland Road interchange area of corridor for 101. And you've joined the scoping meeting. And we still have attendees joining us. And we are using multiple interpreters this evening. So we will be starting the meeting by having interpreters explain to those who need interpretation services how to access those before we start the formal meeting. Again, thank you for being on time, and we will be getting going in just another minute. Well, it looks like our attendees have slowed down on joining the meeting. So my name's Eileen Goodwin. I am the meeting moderator this evening, and we welcome you to the project scoping meeting for the US 101 Mabury-Berryessa-Oakland Road Corridor project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our interpreters. We do have several this evening, and I'll be calling them in alphabetical order. They will explain to the community members, and I'm going to ask for the next slide so everyone can follow along, that we could get the next slide. Thank you. So as you can see, if folks need interpretation services, we are offering those, and it is accessible through the bottom of your Zoom bar there at the bottom of your computer page. So we'll be asking our interpreters to explain to those who need it how to access those services. So with that, I'm going to ask our Cantonese interpreter to please explain how to access, and then move your folks into the separate interpretation room.
Thank you, Eileen. 係大家晚上好，多謝你哋今日嚟參加呢個 Mabury-Berryessa-Oakland 路走廊嘅工程方案規劃會議。如果你哋需要傳譯服務嘅話咧，請你喺你個屏幕嘅底部揾到一個呢個控制，就係有寫住 interpretation 有個地球儀嘅。咁然後你揾到中文 Chinese 嗰度，你咧就點擊落去，咁你就可以聽到中文㗎啦。咁我哋一陣間咧會喺同步傳譯英文嘅時候，我哋會翻譯成廣東話。多謝。Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Miranda. Now we'll move on to Mandarin.
各位晚上好，欢迎大家参与今晚的101公路 Mabury-Berryessa-Oakland 路走廊项目范围界定会议。本次会议我们将提供中文普通话的现场同声翻译服务。如果各位需要使用到中文普通话的同声翻译服务的话，请点击屏幕下方 Zoom 工具栏有一个地球仪的标志，并且选择中文普通话的这个选项。再次感谢。
Thank you. Denise, in Portuguese, please.
Boa noite. Sejam bem-vindos à reunião de âmbito do projeto Corredor das rodovias US 101 Mabury-Berryessa-Oakland. Agradecemos por sua presença. Haverá interpretação em português disponível. Para selecionar a interpretação, clique no símbolo do globo, que fica na parte inferior da tela. Selecione o idioma português e silencie o áudio original. Obrigada.
Thank you, Luciana. Sorry for calling you Denise. All right, we have our Spanish interpretation, please.
Buenas noches. La reunión de el corredor de la autopista 101, Mabury-Berryessa y Oakland Road tiene la función para escuchar en diferentes idiomas, incluyendo el idioma español. Si usted desea participar en este servicio y recibir este tipo de interpretación, lo que tiene que hacer es seguir los siguientes pasos. En la parte inferior de su pantalla, usted va a poder ver ahí el globo que dice interpretación. Por favor, oprime ese globo y seleccione el idioma que usted quiere escuchar la reunión. Gracias.
Thank you. Now on to Vietnamese, please.
Xin chào quý vị, chúng tôi cung ứng dịch vụ thông dịch trực tiếp sang tiếng Việt cho cuộc họp này. Nếu quý vị muốn nghe nội dung cuộc họp bằng tiếng Việt qua máy điện toán, xin hãy nhấp chuột vào nút Interpretation ở phía dưới màn hình Zoom góc bên phải. Quý vị sẽ thấy một biểu tượng hình quả cầu và chọn tiếng Việt, đó là Vietnamese. Một lần nữa, để nghe thông dịch bằng tiếng Việt, xin hãy chọn Vietnamese. Nếu quý vị tham gia cuộc họp thông qua ứng dụng Zoom dành cho điện thoại thông minh thì xin hãy chọn ngôn ngữ của quý vị bằng cách chạm vào chữ More hoặc 3 dấu chấm ở dưới màn hình góc bên phải, rồi sau đó chọn Language Interpretation, rồi sau đó chọn Vietnamese và chạm vào chữ Done, có nghĩa là xong rồi. Nếu quý vị chỉ muốn nghe thông dịch viên thôi và không muốn nghe tiếng của người phát biểu, xin hãy nhớ nhấp chuột vào Mute Original Audio, đó có nghĩa là tắt âm thanh gốc. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, all of our interpreters. We really appreciate you being here. And as you can see, all the language interpretations are available, and we allow folks to follow along with the same PowerPoint, but they have a different audio feed than those of us in the main room, which will stay in English. So this evening, we will be using a PowerPoint presentation. There are several speakers, and we will be having the question and answer function, which is turned on for this meeting. And that's how we'll be capturing questions from our audience participants. So we'd ask that you type in your question, and we will be answering all questions we get this evening. And I will be articulating any comments that you make, and we will get as many answers out with our team as possible where we know the answers this evening. But as you'll learn from the PowerPoint, we're in the very beginning of this project, and several of the answers that you might hope that we would have this evening, we will not have until we have more work done on some of the topics that involve the environmental document. So you might have a question that we can't answer this evening, but rest assured that we are paying attention to what you're saying. We're also encouraging you to please formally comment or ask any questions that you want to make sure that our team covers in the environmental document. And I'll explain how you can enter formal questions into the process at the end of the PowerPoint before we get to the question and answer period. This meeting is scheduled to go to 8 o'clock this evening. And of course, you don't need to stay the whole time if you choose to leave. This meeting is being recorded, as you no doubt have noticed, and we will be posting the PowerPoint as well as this meeting recording next week on the City of San Jose's website, which is the same web address that you use to access the meeting this evening. So that is something that you can also share with friends and family, colleagues from work, etc., because we would like people to understand that this project has kicked off, and the formal comment period will stay open through February 4th at the end of the day. So if you are the type of person who maybe needs to digest it, or perhaps even watch this recording more than once, that comment period will stay open through February 4th. And we'll be reminding you about that throughout this evening. In the question and answers, we will be potentially getting questions that are topical from several of you, and we will try and batch those. So as we put our experts on who have subject matter expertise, we will try and batch those questions to be efficiently going through the questions this evening. Should you be on the phone only, and I can see that there are some phone numbers that have logged in. It's not clear to me whether you also are following along on the computer as well. But if you're only listening to this, we do have the ability to put you in the line for a question by pressing *9. And then we'll put you in a queue and we will take those questions as well. And we will be batching those. So again, to move the Q&A process more smoothly. And so that's how that part will go. So we look forward to all of your questions and comments. But again, I want to reiterate that if you want them formally into the process, you'll need to use one of the methods that I'll explain later, right before the question and answer period. So next, we do, as I mentioned, have several people here available to not only speak to the PowerPoint, but also answer questions for you this evening. And so you've met me. I'm your meeting facilitator. I'm up there on the left. Neil Ong is here. He is our project lead for the City of San Jose Department of Transportation. His boss, Zahir Gazada, is here. He's the division manager, and Zahir has expertise in funding and regional planning, so he may take some of the questions as well. Rodney Pimentel, he's with HNTB. He is the project lead for the engineering on the project, and he will be delivering part of the PowerPoint and be available for question and answer. Carrie Montero, also with HNTB, the consulting firm that the city's hired to be on point on this project and Caltrans has been involved with. She will lead the environmental section of the PowerPoint. And then she's supported by two experts. Ashley is here with Fair and Piers. She's our traffic expert. And Will is here with David Powers and Associates, and he is going to be the author of the environmental document itself. We also have project leadership, who is monitoring this meeting as well. John Risto, who is the director of the Department of Transportation for the City of San Jose. And then key members from Caltrans, because Caltrans is the lead for the environmental process for this project, as you can imagine, since they are the owner operator of Highway 101. So we have Fariba Zahari. She is our project lead for Caltrans District 4. And she's on the engineering side of things. And she's joined by Lindsay Vivian, who's head of the environmental department here in the Bay Area. And we're very lucky to have her in attendance this evening. And she's supported by Daniel Chan, also the environmental part of Caltrans. And when you make comments formally, you'll see Daniel's name again, as he will be receiving those at Caltrans in Oakland. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about what a scoping meeting goals are. So you've heard that we have a lot of people available for question and answer. You've heard that we have a PowerPoint, but what are we trying to accomplish with this meeting? Well, there's several things we're trying to accomplish this evening. First off is to make the community aware that we've done a notice of preparation for the beginning of this environmental impact analysis. And it's very important that you understand it's been kicked off and that there's a formal comment period which ends on February 4th. And Carrie will go through more details about what that means in just a minute. We also want to get you an understanding of the project, and Rodney will be delivering material on that. He will go through what alternatives have been studied, what the project elements are, and generally speaking, where the project's located in San Jose. So that's a very important goal of our meeting this evening, is to have you understand the processes and also what's being studied. And then finally, we want to gather feedback on what you're thinking about this project. And again, anything you put in the questions is very important to our team to understand maybe what wasn't as clear as it could be, or what you're more interested in as far as materials that need to be studied, what some environmental impacts might be that you're concerned about, and perhaps you might have questions about how people arrive at decisions about the project or the methodologies that's used. So that's another goal of this evening's meeting, is to open up that conversation and get as much information out to the community as possible. So we're hopeful that you enjoy this meeting, and again, that you participate through the Q&A function. And now I'm going to turn it over to Neil, who I mentioned is the project lead on behalf of the City of San Jose, to give you a little bit of project background. Then he'll be followed by Rodney, followed by Carrie, and then I'll come back on and explain again about the Q&A, and we'll start taking your questions and comments. So with that, Neil.
All right, thanks, Eileen. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to learn more about the US 101 Mabury-Berryessa-Oakland Road Corridor Project. Again, I'm Neil Ong, Senior Engineer for the Regional Projects Delivery Team at the City of San Jose, Department of Transportation, managing this project. In addition to the city members that Eileen mentioned earlier, I also want to acknowledge our other members of the city team, and they are Joe Nguyen, Associate Engineer, and Kay Ruan, Engineer 1-2. So we at the city, in collaboration with our partners at Caltrans, are very excited to move this very important and long-awaited project forward. The project has a long history, with it first being proposed in the late 80s, early 90s. However, due to other regional and citywide priorities, along with funding constraints, the project hadn't advanced beyond preliminary studies. Since the project was first proposed, the surrounding neighborhoods in the project area have developed substantially with the new Berryessa BART station that has been open since summer of 2020. There is also the planned Berryessa BART Urban Village and proposed new development at the flea market. With the expected growth in the area, there is also an expected increase of congestion to occur on local roadways. We also can't forget our multimodal goals with regional bicycle plan corridors crossing the project area. Therefore, this reinforced the need to advance work on this project and has become a top priority project, which is why we are here today to kickstart the advancement of this project through the environmental process. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of this project. While new access at Mayberry Road had been studied for a while, changes in the neighborhood since the 1990s led to the emergence of concepts for new access at the Berryessa Road instead of at Mayberry Road. In addition, there are proposals to fully or partially remove the existing Oakland Road interchange due to its close proximity with the heavily congested 880-101 interchange. Lastly, but most importantly, we want to provide safe multimodal improvements for bicyclists and pedestrians along the key corridors over US 101 that are currently lacking. Next slide, please. Currently, this project is partially funded by local funds and the 2016 Santa Clara County voter-approved Measure B sales tax. In addition, we will also be looking at federal fund opportunities as they become available, such as the new infrastructure bill that was recently passed. With that, we will have Rodney Pimentel from HNTB, who will go into further detail on the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Yeah, again, I'm Rodney Pimentel, and I'm the consultant project manager for the development of this project. First of all, I just like to say for any project of this magnitude, one of the early items that's developed is the purpose and need, which is really boils down to the goals of the project. This is something that the project development team, which consists of the City of San Jose, Caltrans, and the consultant team came up with as the initial goals of the project, which is to improve mobility and accessibility for all users between US 101 and the Berryessa BART station, the Oakland Road and Berryessa Road and Mayberry Road, to reduce congestion on local streets in the area, and to enhance bicycle and pedestrian accessibility and connectivity in the project area. Next slide. Looking at the need of the project, it's really that lack of direct access to the area, as well as several gaps in the existing bicycle and pedestrian network, and making sure that all of the improvements are consistent with all the current and future planned development in the area. Next slide.
Rodney, I'm being asked if you could just slow down just a tiny bit from our interpretation rooms, please.
Sure, absolutely. First, looking at the existing conditions and the the motoring public for people traveling northbound on US 101. If you want to access the project area, namely the BART station or the flea market or North San Jose, people need to exit at McKee Road and make a right or left and take several indirect routes to the project area. Next slide. Conversely, traveling southbound, motorists need to exit at Oakland Road, make a right or left, and again, take an indirect set of routes in order to access the project area. Next slide. So what we did as the consultant and the project development team was establish a project study area that's shown in gray, and that project study area encompasses several different routes through that area. And what the project team is going to be focusing on is constructing a potential new interchange at Berryessa Road, shown in brown. The project team is also going to be studying all of the bicycle and pedestrian routes through the project area. We'll be studying the signalized intersections that are shown as purple squares. And we're also going to be looking to eliminate the ramps between Oakland Road and I-880 because of their short distance between them. Next slide.
And just if I could jump in here as my mistake that I didn't mention, these slides are numbered. So if you would like us during the Q&A to go back to a certain slide, the numbers are in the center of the top between the blue bar on the upper left and the logos on the right. So hopefully you can see that if that's something you'd like us to go back. I know particularly on these maps, if you want to type that in when you have your question, we can certainly accommodate that. So sorry to interrupt, Rodney, but I wanted to make sure people knew that.
Thank you, Eileen. Again, looking at the existing bicycle and pedestrian routes in the project study area, what's shown as black dashed lines are the discontinuous sidewalks or gaps in sidewalks that currently exist. What's shown as the dashed yellow line are gaps in the current bicycle network. Next slide. So what the project is going to be focusing on is making sure that we, again, looking at the bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, making sure that we construct new sidewalks, crosswalks, and curb ramps where these gaps currently exist, making sure that all of the proposed improvements are compatible with the VTA Central Bikeway Study, which does include establishing the Mabury Road connection as the primary bike route, and that we close all the existing gaps in the bicycle networks as possible. Next slide. Now I'll hand it over to Carrie.
Well, thank you, Rodney, and good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Montero, and I am the Consultant Environmental Manager for this project. And I wanted to take a moment this evening to talk a little bit about the overall project timeline to begin with. Right now, and up until spring of 2022, we're in the formal scoping phase. And during that phase, we have been meeting with some key stakeholders, elected officials, and of course, we're holding this formal public scoping meeting this evening. And as Eileen discussed earlier in the presentation, our purpose for tonight is really to receive public feedback on the beginning concepts of this project. From spring of 2022 to spring of 2025, we'll be advancing into the environmental approval phase. And during that phase, we will be developing and writing environmental technical studies. We'll, of course, be writing the draft environmental document for the California Environmental Quality Act and the National Environmental Policy Act compliance. We will have another public hearing when we are ready to circulate the draft environmental document. And following the circulation of the draft environmental document, we'll be identifying a preferred alternative. Moving into summer of 2024 through summer of 2026, we'll be moving into the final design and right-of-way phase. During that phase, we'll be developing the final designs, acquiring any right-of-way that might be needed, continuing our stakeholder meetings, and also acquiring any regulatory permits or clearances that are needed for the project and that have been identified in the environmental document. And then construction is proposed to begin around the fall of 2026 and last until 2028 during the winter. Now, I do want to emphasize that there are going to be multiple opportunities for the public to comment on this project. There are two formal opportunities, one of which is this evening, which you've joined us at as part of the scoping meeting. Secondly, there'll be another major opportunity to submit formal comments, and that will be during the circulation of the draft environmental document. And we expect that to be around during, I would say, late spring of 2024. But Throughout the entire life of the project, there will be other opportunities through stakeholder and community meetings to communicate your interests and needs about the project. And finally, we have established a project email, and that formal email will be able to receive comments from this point all the way through to the end of construction. So there are multiple opportunities for the community and yourselves to comment on the project and let us know what you're thinking. I'd like to move to the next slide, please. So this evening, I also want to talk a little bit about the potential environmental impacts that we're going to begin studying once we finish with the scoping. Those impacts include, but are certainly not limited to, traffic impacts, cultural resources, and paleontological impacts, also tribal communications and tribal resources. Of course, biological resources, community impacts, including environmental justice impacts, potential impacts from hazardous materials and waste, property impacts, visual aesthetics impacts, water quality impacts, and noise and air impacts. And of course, we'll be studying and discussing in our environmental document construction-related impacts. However, we really welcome your feedback. So if you have any thoughts on these particular topics or think we've missed something, we want to hear from you. Please let us know. As I mentioned earlier, the technical studies for the environmental analysis are planned to be released in a draft environmental circulation in 2024. Next slide, please. So following the scoping period from which we're in at the moment, we're going to be gathering your comments, taking a look at them, analyzing our footprint and making sure it's accurate and appropriate. And then we're going to begin our environmental technical studies. Once those technical studies are completed, we'll be preparing the draft environmental document in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act and the National Environmental Policy Act, CEQA and NEPA. And once we have an approved draft environmental document, we'll be ready for another public hearing to receive your feedback and sharing that draft environmental document with you. And again, that's expected in 2024. Following that public hearing, we'll move to identify a preferred project alternative. And once that's identified, we'll move as quickly as we can to prepare the final environmental document for the project. With that, that is an overview of the environmental process, and I'll turn this back to Eileen. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. And thanks everyone for being here. I did want to give some information for how the public comments can come in officially for the project. And I also wanted to reiterate for those of you who might have joined us a little bit later, that this video, as well as the PowerPoint, will be posted next week at the website that you see above the yellow box there, which is https://bit.ly/101 Mayberry. So for those of you on the phone, I'm also going to reiterate how you can submit formal comments by a voicemail, which is 800-795-7455, or an email to that email address that Carrie mentioned that will be the project email for the duration of the project, and that is us.mayberry.101.project@dot.ca.gov. So that's the official Caltrans email for this project. There's also an online comment form at that website that I just mentioned. That is the website for the project that will have this video and the PowerPoint. That's the bit.ly 101 Mayberry address. There is an actual comment card that you can fill out to give your comments officially into the record. We have already received several comments by just even notifying people of the meeting, and we're happy to take more through February 4th. The comment period closes at the end of that day. Finally, if you prefer to write a letter the old-fashioned way, we have accommodation for that as well. You would mail it to Caltrans District 4, And you would make it attention to Daniel Chan, and you met him a little bit earlier. His picture's on our PowerPoint. He's the environmental planner on point to accept all of this feedback and help us organize all your comments. He can be reached as P.O. Box 23660, and he's at mail station 8B as in boy. And it's important that you get the mail station because Caltrans has a large building, and we want to make sure that your letter comes in and is seen by Daniel, so it can be part of that record. Caltrans is in Oakland, and of course in California, 94623, and then the additional zip code is 0660. And I did want to also mention that we have had some cameras off, as you might have noticed. That was on purpose. Some of our experts that are here to answer your questions in just a minute, we're going to ask them to turn those back on, because for some of us who have a little bit slower download and upload speed, having a lot of cameras to interact with that makes the data fatter. And so when we're using our PowerPoint, we asked some of our speakers to turn off their cameras, but now is a good time to turn those back on. And then before I reiterate how we're doing the Q&A this evening, and some of you have found out how to do that already. I see that we've got some questions in the hopper. I did want to acknowledge that we do have Councilmember Cohen here this evening. We also have representatives from City Council Districts 3, 4, and 5. Including David Tan with District 3. We have someone who logged in as an assembly member, but I don't see a last name there. I do recognize someone who's here who's a board member with the Santa Clara Valley Water District. Welcome. And I do also recognize there's representatives here from the Valley Transportation Authority, or VTA. So there's a lot of you here this evening that are public, and we're very excited to hear and see your questions and see how many we can answer. But again, just to remind those of you who maybe joined a little bit later, we are at the beginning of the process, and some of our questions are going to be easier to answer this evening, and then others we're going to need to do some more work and be able to answer those questions when we have the draft environmental document, as Carrie mentioned. So I'm going to start an easy question that's already come in, and that was a question about, will a copy of the presentation be available online? Yes, both this recording as well as the PowerPoint will be on that city website next week. So thank you for asking that question. And I did see our Valley Water District, Richard Santos, he made a comment to be recognized, and we have done that. I have a question about funding. So Neil, I wanted, maybe perhaps you could reiterate this. I know it was part of the PowerPoint, but perhaps this person missed the beginning of the meeting. What is the funding status for this project? And maybe we can go to that slide on the deck and have you speak to that if you wish.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen, and thank you for that question. So currently this project is partially funded by both local funds and the 2016 Santa Clara County voter approved Measure B sales tax, and that's through the environmental and design. In addition, we will also be looking at federal fund opportunities as they become available for both the right-of-way and construction. And also the Measure B is also partially funding the construction and right-of-way as well.
Great, thank you. And just to remind people, you can find your Q&A function on your computer screen. It looks like two thought bubbles with a Q and an A, and if you click on that, it will give you a place to type in. Or if you're joining us only by phone, if you hit *9, we'll put you in the queue to be called on to give us your question. There's a couple of technical questions, but this one is more philosophical, and it is, Mayberry has been planned for an interchange for decades. When and why did the focus shift to Berryessa? And Rodney, did you want to explain the thought process on that, since I know you have been very integrated into that whole funding, I mean, the whole process of getting to where we are today?
Absolutely, Eileen. So as Neil had talked about, initial studies back in the 1990s were focused primarily on constructing or designing an interchange at Mayberry, and our project team, studied many potential options for constructing a new interchange on US 101. The logical candidates, between Oakland Road and McKee are at Berryessa and at Mayberry. So we did, our team did look long and hard at many different interchange options at both of those locations, and we also looked at the environmental impacts, and there were several impacts with constructing the interchange at Mayberry. Carrie, would you like to maybe elaborate a little bit more on some of those impacts that we identified?
Sure. In particular, we with those early alternatives that we were able to screen out, there were potential impacts to Watson Park, which is a Section 4F resource, and we knew that we wanted to avoid impacts. And I see we do have a question about Watson Park, so we can talk about that again as we move along with the questions. There were also additional and more significant impacts with bridge widenings that would be needed, and that would be affecting some of the creeks within our project footprint. So those were some of the larger impacts. There were also a significant number of additional potential right-of-way takes. And we've been very cognizant and have been working very, very hard to make sure that we reduce our right-of-way takes to the maximum possible as part of the environmental process. Thank you,
Carrie. And then and part of the also the overarching bike plan, the VTA is sponsoring, has identified the Mayberry corridor as one of the ideal bike routes through the area, and so this project will be making improvements to the Mayberry corridor to provide for a very high quality, low stress bike route through the area at that location. So with all of that said, the Berryessa crossing has really kind of shown to be a more ideal location for an interchange.
So while I have you both, I've got a question here about the schedule. And I know, Carrie, you gave the schedule for the environmental process and some big picture on getting the project ready for construction. But this specific question is, what is the schedule for the start of construction? And then when would the opening of the interchange be?
I can take that on, and Rodney can add on to that if needed. But right now, the schedule is showing a start of construction in 2026, and then opening day would be sometime in the winter of 2028. So a 2-year construction schedule, with 2028 being the opening period or opening year that we would be able to open the interchange and the bicycle improvements to the public.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to group some of these questions together in just a little bit. We've had a request to go back to our maps, Rodney, and kind of walk people through the different turning movements and how bikes and peds would get through potentially the areas. So I'm going to ask you to do that with an eye on North Bayshore Road as well, because there's a question about whether someone who lives there would be impacted. But before I get there, there is a specific question I would like Ashley to take an answer for, which is at North 17th Street. Traffic has difficulty turning left onto Heading under current conditions. Adding on and off ramp at Berryessa 101 will increase this difficulty. Does the project include a new traffic light at North 17th and Heading? So maybe Rodney, you could start, and then maybe Ashley could add some details. So you could talk about how that would potentially come to pass or not. So again, we're talking about North 17th at Heading, and then there's existing issues with difficulties turning, and the speaker here has said that it could get worse. So what are we doing about that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. And again, we'll be maintaining access to all of these local streets and the network as part of all of the alternatives we'll be looking at. And we'll be also looking at, analyzing the existing signalized intersections and also constructing any new signals if they're warranted. And I guess I'll tee it up for Ashley because that's a perfect segue.
Take it away, Ashley.
Thanks, Rodney. The only thing I'll add is that any addition of signalized intersections will be studied as part of the environmental document to determine if they are necessary. Although I wouldn't be surprised given the location and that I do drive here regularly, so I understand the difficulty turning left, that would be something that we evaluate as part of the environmental document, the need for a signal, but we will definitely be looking at that in the future.
Great, thank you. So I'm now going to group a couple things as we walk through the details. Someone has asked us to go back to the slides about the project specifics and the proposed changes and walk through the changes of the bikeways, the on and off ramps, et cetera. And also wanting specifically to understand the connection to the off ramps and on ramps at Old Oakland. Rodney, if you would do that. And then as you're doing that, if you could also talk about the North Bayshore Road area and how that would or would not be affected. And then one other thing as you're walking through here, are we looking at other options for ramps, such as only putting them on the east side of Mayberry versus the west side of Taylor? So if you could try and cover all those, and we'll try and remind you of these various topics. But I think it's helpful as you're touching on these different things to be recognizing that people have questions about all of those topics.
Okay, well, starting up with the North Bayshore, the North Bayshore Road area is definitely within the project study area, and again, access to North Bayshore will be maintained, and we'll be cognizant of all of that accessibility to all of these neighborhoods in the area. We are going to be studying the ramps at Oakland Road. Again, our initial thoughts, which has been agreed to by Caltrans, is to look at closing the two ramps on the west side of Oakland Road in order to provide a little bit more separation between Oakland Road and US and 880. And then looking at Berryessa, we'll be studying several different configurations, including a tight diamond in the Berryessa area. Again, looking at maintaining all the current accessibility that currently exists at Oakland Road, and really trying to improve the accessibility both to the North San Jose and to the BART station and flea market area with a new interchange at Berryessa. And as part of that, we'll be studying all of the gaps, both in the bicycle network and in the pedestrian sidewalk network. As you can see on this exhibit here, those black dashed lines are current gaps in the sidewalk network that we'll be closing as part of this project. And we'll be closing also any gaps in the bicycle network, such as the one there on Oakland Road. So I'm not sure if I answered the entire thing, Eileen. Let me know if there's any holes I left.
You did a great job.
But we're gonna, this is a scoping meeting. This is the early stage of the project. The whole idea is to get feedback and get questions, get ideas from as many people as we can. And as we go through the alternatives and look at options, we'll be taking all those into consideration as we do all of our technical studies.
And did you specifically address the option of the Mayberry versus the west side of Taylor question?
Yes, I think I did.
Yeah, and I know you did. You got the other one. Yes.
Rodney, could you just talk a little bit again about why the Oakland Road ramps are potentially being looked at for closure? I think that might be good just to explain again, to go over that.
Sure. If you go flip to the slide before this, so if you can see where those two red asterisks are, those are the ramps on the western side, basically getting onto 880 or getting on to 101 and then getting back off on 880, or vice versa, people that are going from 880 or US 101 onto Oakland Road. And if you could, and as everyone knows, I mean, that has driven this area, the interchange is very, very close. The Oakland Road interchange is very, very close to I-880. So those two ramps are too short, and there's not enough separation. So what the project is going to look at is basically constructing auxiliary lanes, and I think people are familiar with auxiliary lanes that'll go all the way from I-880 all the way to Berryessa. So it'll be a much more lower stress, longer transition that people will have to be able to get either off or on from Berryessa to I-880, and then also to US 101. So it'll be a much, from an operational standpoint, it's going to be much better in the future.
Great. I have one more topic that I think, Rodney, you and Carrie will be speaking about, and then I'm going to move on. There's a couple of questions in here about the unhoused, and I will read those in just a minute. So we'll get our Caltrans folks on deck, as well as city folks, to help answer those questions. But before we go there, I wanted to talk, this person has just left a comment, but I think it's important that it probably could be discussed in a little more detail. The comment is, please preserve as much of Watson Park as possible in the design. So Rodney, did you want to address what, if anything, is happening there?
Right, and Carrie also elaborated on that. All of the alternatives at Mayberry had some impact on Watson Park. Some had a great deal of impact, and some had lesser of an impact, but they all had an impact. and we've definitely heard that from many different people, which is one of the reasons why moving or looking at the interchange at Berryessa has a tremendous advantage, because it doesn't have any impact to Watson Park.
Great. Okay, now I'm going to take a couple of questions. Let me read them so that our folks who may be answering part or all of these can understand the flavor of the questions that have come in. And it said, thank you for the presentation. And then the question is, will there be a study specifically to address how the homeless situation in the project area will be impacted? And then the second question is very similar. Are the large populations of unhoused being addressed in your study? So Victor, if you wanted to give us an update from the Caltrans, what's the Caltrans protocols on this issue? And then I know, Carrie, you've got information about what this specific project is studying related to our environmental document. And then perhaps the city would also want to chime in on their awareness of the situation. So Victor, if you would start, please.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much. So yes, at this time, we can acknowledge that we will be doing a study on how this project may impact unsheltered individuals in the area.
And excuse me, Victor, if you would explain who what your role is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Caltrans.
I'm Victor Gaucher. I'm a public information officer with Caltrans for Santa Clara County.
Thank you.
So again, and sorry about that. So yes, at this time, we do acknowledge that there will be a study on how this project may impact unsheltered individuals in the area. But right now it is a little early to say, as with most projects, how the potential unsheltered are going to be impacted. But Caltrans is continuously working with the city of San Jose to address the housing and health needs of people experiencing unsheltered in the area. And we're going to continue to do so. Towards the end, Eileen, I'm not sure, there'll be a link or an email address if people want more detailed information as we move further with this project. If you guys want to email me, we can work with our unsheltered team to get you more information. But as of now, yes, we will be doing some studies on how the project will be affecting unsheltered in the area in months to come.
Thank you, Victor. And if people do want to have that connection, if they would just indicate that in our question, we can respond directly. And I want Carrie to respond about specifically what this environmental document will be looking at. And then I'm going to ask Neil from the city to also chime in before we move on to our next topic. Carrie?
Perfect. Thank you, Eileen. So yes, as Victor said, we will be studying unsheltered persons and populations within the project footprint. And in particular, we'll be documenting that in a study called the Community Impact Assessment, otherwise known as a CIA. We like to use a lot of acronyms with Caltrans and CEQA and NEPA projects, another set of acronyms. And once we complete the Community Impact Assessment, that document will be summarized in the draft environmental documents. We will also be documenting any coordination that Caltrans and the project has with the city of San Jose regarding unsheltered populations, and that will also be summarized in a specific communication chapter within the draft environmental document. And when we're ready to circulate the draft environmental document, that community impact analysis will be made available as part of the technical studies that people can take a look at the specific details in addition to the draft environmental document. And I just want to put one quick plug in. Some of these questions, actually all of these questions have been fantastic and are really great. And I would just strongly encourage everyone to submit these questions as formal comments and questions via our comment form on the City of San Jose's webpage or through the Caltrans email. That's the quickest way to get those comments formally set into the into our environmental scoping process. So thank you, Eileen, for the opportunity to add on to that.
No, thank you. Neil, did you want to add anything about the unsheltered issue, homeless issue in the area?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that, we will be doing a study and it will be going through both the city and Caltrans policy and procedures. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So here's a quick one, and I'm not quite sure who gets to answer it, but this is one after my own heart. If this turns out to be the Heading-Berryessa interchange, when will the project name be changed? This could avoid a lot of confusion for the general public, including the person who wrote this. And as you all heard in the very beginning of the meeting, and as you've seen from our materials thus far, this is quite a mouthful of a project name at the moment. So perhaps Carrie, could you take this one on when the appropriate time might be to actually change the branding or name on this project?
I am actually going to send this question to Neil because I do believe I'll tee Neil up on this in that, you know, as Neil mentioned, this project has been in the works for 30 years and it's been on the radar for the city of San Jose. And I do believe that there have already been some funding applications that have been submitted with the project name as we currently have it. And so for consistency's sake and for recognition for funding authorities, keeping the name as is rather important just because the city of San Jose wants to make sure they get as much funding for the project as possible. And I'll send it over to Neil at this point if he wants to talk a little bit more about if there are potential opportunities to change the project name or how the city of San Jose is feeling about that.
Yeah, right now we're keeping it as is because as you can see with the map below, we are providing improvements throughout this whole corridor with both the Oakland Road interchange, Berryessa Road interchange, and then the Mayberry Road overcrossing. So for as of right now, we want to be consistent with what we had mentioned in our VTA Measure B application, as Carrie had mentioned. When the time comes, as we continue to move forward with this project, there may be opportunities, but as of right now, we're gonna keep this as is. Thank you.
Okay, next question, back to Rodney and Carrie. Can you publish the analysis of that selected Berryessa as a preferred area over Mayberry? And is that part of the environmental document when it's released?
Yeah, well, I'll start, I guess, and Carrie, you can have it from there. But yeah, this is part of the whole environmental process is to select a preferred alternative, and we'll be doing all of the technical studies that will be that'll be required to evaluate a whole host of issues and concerns that the public is really concerned about. And by the time we circulate the draft environmental document, then we will be recommending a preferred alternative, and the Berryessa interchange is currently the one that we're focused on. Carrie?
And I'll just add, thank you, Rodney. I'll just add on to that, you know, most projects start out with a very wide range of potential alternatives and then work through a screening process to get down to the alternatives that are carried through for further analysis in the environmental document. And so that process, that screening process, and why projects fall out of the ultimate 2 or 3 alternatives, in this case, there'll be 2 alternatives that are carried through into the draft environmental document. Those are carefully documented in the draft environmental document and the final environmental document. we'll carefully go through why those alternatives were dropped or no longer considered for the two that make it into the draft environmental document. So whereas the specific full analysis may not necessarily be available, the outcomes and results and the decision points will be discussed in our draft environmental document as part of the public's opportunity to review that. So thank you, Rodney.
Okay, I've got a comment or actually a question here. The question is, am I to understand that this interchange is to improve car access to the Berryessa BART station? Would access be better served without a new interchange with the greater emphasis on bicycle and pedestrian access? So is that alternative looked at in this, Carrie?
I'm going to pass this question on to Rodney and our transportation planners.
Sure. I mean, again, one of our key, goals and the need and purpose is really access for all modes. And so we'll be focusing on developing the bicycle corridor along Mayberry to provide a very low stress, high quality connection to the Berryessa BART station, consistent with the VTA plan. And then we'll be studying also vehicular access, both for the motoring public and for transit, with a new interchange at Berryessa, as well as making other improvements, to the corridor, in the area to make sure that operations and mobility all are acceptable. So yeah, we're definitely focusing on bikes. We're focusing on pedestrians, and we're also focusing on the traveling public. But it's really accessibility and mobility for all.
Thank you. This question has come in wondering if the project team is aware of the construction of a potential hotel going up at Oakland Road. Are there any plans to the ramps due to that as well? So are you familiar with the potential hotel at Oakland Road?
I'm not currently familiar with the hotel. Maybe if Neil is familiar with it. But again, as part of the alternative analysis, we'll be looking at all and any right-of-way impacts that we currently have. Again, I don't anticipate any right-of-way constraints at Oakland Road. So probably whatever future development is planned, if there is something that's planned, we should be able to accommodate it. But definitely as part of our analysis, we'll be looking at accessibility and maintaining access really to all the parcels. So I don't see that being as an issue, but definitely something we'll be considering.
And I think this person may also have in their thinking of how they worded the question that that might create demand. And if you're looking at getting rid of ramps at Oakland, would that maybe change your mind because of additional development? And if you wanted to speak to development plans and the general plan, perhaps to give some more context at what you look at holistically.
Yeah, and definitely, Ashley, you probably need to turn your camera back on. Definitely will, as far as looking at all of our travel demand, forecasting and our operations, we'll be considering all current and planned development in the area to make sure that we accommodate that as part of our traffic operations analysis. But Ashley, I'll tee that up for you.
Thanks, Rodney. Yeah, so as part of the transportation portion of the environmental document, we will be evaluating not only existing conditions, but also future year conditions, which would include one of the future year scenarios would include the build out of the general plan from the city of San Jose. And so that would include any such developments such as the hotel, or any other developments related to the flea market site, expansion of BART, so on and so forth, that would be factored in when we are evaluating our future year scenarios. So that would be considered and evaluated under the environmental document. As for access, I believe there was a question there too. I mean, obviously that's good to hear concerns from the public about the access to the hotel, and that's something that we'll evaluate, look into further. But there is, obviously continued access to 101, just not necessarily fully at Oakland Road in this scenario.
Okay, so please keep your camera on because there's several traffic questions. I'm going to batch up and we'll take those. So could you please go to slide 14, and I'm going to have Rodney do this, but he may flip it over to you, Ashley, and discuss those traffic flows again, and also what the Oakland Road 101 880 interchange would look like. I think there's some concern. You have some X's off of in the document. I think people are kind of wondering, what does that really mean when it translates into out in the field? What are you thinking about? And what would that look like? And how would the traffic flow work around 101 880 and Oakland Road?
Yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and start, and I'll hand it back to Ashley again, as you know. But yes, the red asterisks we talked about just a little earlier are the ramps on the west side of Oakland Road that would be closed as part of the project improvements. In lieu of those ramps, there'd be auxiliary lanes that would be constructed from I-880 to the new interchange at Berryessa to provide more distance for people that are traveling on US 101 to be able to merge in and out of US 101 and then access I-880 and the Berryessa Road. With that, I'll hand it to Ashley.
Yeah, so definitely one of the considerations when we're thinking about closing ramps and even providing alternative on and off ramp locations is, what does this mean for local streets, and how would travel patterns shift as a result of the project that at hand? And so currently, Oakland Road, Oakland 13th is pretty much the only interchange in this area that provides local access. Meaning that Commercial Street, as shown on the top of the screen, and 13th Street and Heading are really what currently provide connection to Berryessa Road, and then also even further down to Taylor and Mayberry. So we anticipate that those roads will remain primary connection point between a new interchange that would be located at Berryessa and that at Oakland. The flow would be in reverse. So that would definitely be something we'd look at and see what kind of modifications need to be made to make sure that we're accommodating that shift in traffic. As for, I think Rodney covered the freeway portion pretty well, especially as it relates to 880 and 101, but really kind of separating or providing some additional distance between the 880 101 interchange and the next interchange, which in this case would be the Berryessa interchange, would be really beneficial just from an overall congestion standpoint on the freeway, although we do not anticipate adding additional capacity to the freeway as part of this project.
Well, I'm glad you brought up 13th because several questions reference that. So why don't we just stay on this topic? So the question is, what is the uncertainty about eliminating current 13th Street interchange? And I guess, Rodney, that would be back to you. And then I'm going to follow this up directly with, so Ashley can be thinking about it. What's the proposed increased traffic from a new interchange? Will there be any road designs implemented to mediate traffic speeds between being adjacent to residences? Currently, the stretch between 13th and 17th can be subject to high speeds. So I think there's some questions there about managing speed and also questions directly about 13th. So Rodney and Ashley?
Yeah, I think this is more that where Ashley can address this, but I think when they're talking about the 13th Street interchange, they're talking about Oakland Road, and again, I think we addressed the ramps on the west side with the two red asterisks that would be closed, and with that, the benefits of adding auxiliary lanes in both of those directions. Ashley, did you want to talk about the traffic speeds? And
please. So the question again is, as we change the traffic patterns, already there's a speeding that's happening on the local road between 13th and 17th, and they're wondering if you're aware of it, and if you're designing anything to try and mitigate that because it's adjacent to residences. And I think there's a concern that people would be using that more and it would be very fast. Right. Yes, that's very true. And as we all know, the city of San Jose a few years ago actually performed a road diet on Heading Street
to narrow the lanes and add additional bicycle facilities. And so that is something that we would look at seriously or consider seriously in terms of what we would do to modify anything that the city has recently completed on Heading Street. But it will be studied as part of the environmental document to evaluate any potential changes or mitigations or improvements that can be made to Heading Street based off of the realignment of the interchange to Berryessa.
So just for the uninitiated, a road diet doesn't mean you stop
Oh, yes.
feeding it. What does that mean for the lay person?
Essentially, it means narrowing the number or decreasing the number of lanes. So previously from 4 lanes, 2 in each direction, down to 1 in each direction, or even 3 lanes where you have 1 lane in each direction and what we call a 2-way left turn lane, or that center lane that you use to idle in to make left turns. So something of that sort, will be, well, that's, already currently there, but will be evaluated further with the addition of the Mayberry interchange. But thank you, Eileen.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to switch topics here. I've got a couple of business owners that have written in, and I just want to make sure that these are acknowledged and that the comments are being read and answered as best we can tonight. And again, to reiterate what Carrie said and what I've said earlier, and I will say again before we adjourn, which is to make these comments formal, please use those comment availability either through the 1-800 number, through the mail station at Caltrans with a regular letter, or through our 2 electronic ways. One is through our email, and then the other is through the comment card that's on the website. And we will be putting up, and hopefully actually it is up, those on, maybe we can go to that, Patty, show those again for those of you who may have missed it. Maybe you can take a photo on your phone. We'll be posting these next week, this whole PowerPoint and the video, but in the meantime, take a photo so you can get these comments directly into our system. So with that, one question is more generic and then the other is more specific. The question that's more generic says, what happens to businesses that are on Oakland Road that are dependent upon freeway access? And then there's another question here that says, our business has submitted concerns to the city of San Jose since 2017 regarding the present hazards at the intersection of Mayberry and East Taylor. Can you confirm that this intersection will be studied for pedestrian traffic safety? This intersection is already extremely busy and difficult to navigate. So let's take the one about the business access at Oakland. If you want to talk about how someone might then access 101 in a business, as a business user of 101 with the elimination of those ramps, if you would. Rodney.
You gotta be specific.
Yes. Rodney, please.
Yes, I mean all businesses on Oakland Road will still have access to the freeway, just like they do now. If you want to go back to the project study area map, businesses on Oakland Road would simply take commercial to Berryessa, or they'd take or they go down Oakland Road down to Heading. You can go back to the that one there. So everyone's going to have access to Oakland Road, especially businesses. One of the benefits of the project, especially for large trucks that are entering and exiting this area from US 101, is going to have a much greater distance to be able to maneuver to go from Berryessa to I-880 and continue on to US 101. So operationally, and from a safety standpoint, the new design will have a lot of improvements. But yes, all businesses that have access from Oakland Road now will still have access. They will just need to take just a different route to get onto US 101.
And can you confirm that you are in fact looking at the intersection of Mayberry and East Taylor, and that you're studying it in particular to improve the pedestrian and traffic safety elements of it? And
yes. Yeah, and
you'll make it better, I think, is the hope of this commenter.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with the Taylor Mayberry corridor being the primary bicycle route through the area, we'll be looking at all of the intersections along East Taylor and Mabury to make sure that basically if they're already signalized, if they're signalized safely, and if they're not signalized, we'll be doing warrant analysis to see if a signal needs to be added. But definitely we'll be looking at each of these intersections to make sure that all of the current safety strategies are being employed.
Thank you. I have a question about phasing, and this is coming in from a council member. And the question is, as the studies progress, is there a possibility that some of the elements of high importance, such as improved bike ped access, added signals, added lanes, could be accelerated to be built out earlier, as they wouldn't have to wait to the 2026-2028 construction years? So is it possible to potentially get some of these project elements moving more quickly? I think that might be a city question, but it also probably has an environmental aspect to it. So Carrie, could you start, and then we'll have Neil jump in as well.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is, as we move forward to a construction period of 2026 to 2028, is there a possibility of pulling out specific things such as our bike paths and added lanes or signals that might be required? Could those go in front of the bigger project working on the interchange itself?
Right. So thank you, Eileen. Once the environmental document is cleared, how the project is phased or not phased is something that the city of San Jose can work with Caltrans on to determine if there is the possibility to do some of the activities and actions that are suggested in the comment. Again, I would suggest submitting that comment so that that can help inform our EIR. And I'll pass it on to Neil for some comment on potential ways to deliver the project on or portions of the project on a different time schedule than what we have currently set out.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. Right now it's early stage right now. So we really, as Carrie had mentioned, we need to get the project approval as a whole first before we can start looking at options of phasing the project, and that would occur during our design phase. Thank you.
And I've been asked to make sure that we clarify, and Rodney, I'm looking at you to do this and verify that the Oakland to 101 South entrance and the 101 off at Oakland would remain. So we're only talking about half of the access at Oakland, and those would be the two that would remain. So you'd still be able to the Oakland to 101 South, and then the 101 North to Oakland exit would remain. Is that correct, Rodney?
We'll definitely be studying that. We know for sure that we need to remove I guess it would be the Oakland to US 101 North and the US 101 South to Oakland. Those need to be removed in order to accommodate the auxiliary lanes. As far as the two other ramps, we'll be studying those to make sure that they can be accommodated as part of the interchange analysis. And again, we'll be doing all the traffic operational analysis as well to see if they can remain. But we need to be cognizant of right-of-way impacts and operational impacts. So we have to weigh both of those as we're looking at our alternatives. But we'll definitely be studying that.
Hey, Rodney, is it possible to also explain the auxiliary lanes? There might be some that might not know.
Right. So what's shown as the brown dashed lines between, you see where the two red asterisks are, just to the west side of Oakland Road. And there are these two brown dashed lines, and those two brown dashed lines would be an auxiliary lane that will connect directly from I-880 to the Berryessa Road interchange. And as people are familiar with auxiliary lanes, it gives you the opportunity to pull off to the far right on the roadway in order to give you a greater distance to be able to merge in and out of that lane. And then once you're in that lane, then you would exit. So again, it's going to be there's going to be a much greater distance. It's going to be a great improvement operationally, but definitely we're going to be studying all the different movements at Oakland Road, especially the ramps on the east side of Oakland Road.
Okay, since we're staying at Oakland and there's a great deal of interest, I wanted to stay and ask this question. And this might be an Ashley question. If the southbound exit of 101 to Oakland Road is kept and the right turn from Old Oakland Road to Mayberry is kept, is there an expectation that the traffic backup on the overpass could be significantly improved? Is that the thinking? Ashley?
So just to clarify, I believe I understand what the commenter is saying, but the southbound exit from 101 to Oakland Road will actually be one of the locations that is removed. So as you can see, that's the bottom on the screen, that is the bottom red asterisk. And so I believe the commenter is talking about taking this exit, crossing over 101 and then taking the Mayberry frontage road. And then that movement would no longer be a viable option with the removal of that ramp. And therefore that person looking to travel off of 101 southbound over the Oakland Road, or on Oakland Road over the 101 on Mayberry would now exit at Berryessa. And then you have direct access to Berryessa instead of using the Mayberry frontage road. So that would definitely lessen congestion over the Oakland Road overcrossing. And so, yeah, that is something that we're definitely considering, as well as just in terms of which ramps remain and which are relocated or removed. How do we best address congestion on the overpasses, both at Oakland Road and at Berryessa? But I think I addressed their question as best as possible.
And again, please resubmit this formally, and be happy to continue to look at this question. And we are, of course, listening and paying attention to everything you're bringing up today. But for it to be officially part of the record, it does need to be resubmitted. So thank you for that. And then I'm going to ask, and again, Rodney, I know you've already answered this multiple times. Perhaps this person has come and joined us a little bit late. So I'm going to ask you to give more of a Reader's Digest version, because we do still have plenty of questions coming in the hopper. But this person has asked, why was Taylor Mayberry taken off the table for consideration for ramps? So if you could do that, and then I would encourage this person to, next week, this whole presentation and all this Q&A will be posted, and you can go back and enjoy the previous times this question has been answered. But I do want to be respectful and make sure that this question does get answered in some fashion.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, as we talked about earlier, back in the early 1990s, most of the focus was at Mayberry, constructing several different interchange options there, but all of those interchanges had impacts to Watson Park, which was very undesirable. And since then, with the changes in the development and the new desire to have the Taylor Mayberry corridor being the primary bicycle route to and from the Berryessa BART station, we have left that as the primary bicycle corridor, and this project will be making improvements to East Taylor and Mayberry in order to accommodate that, and then instead refocus the interchange to Berryessa. How's that?
Thank you. Good. Okay. The next question is specifically hoping that Caltrans can address this, since Caltrans is present at the meeting. And this person is feeling it would be great if Caltrans could help address the ever-present tagging of the train track crossing over 101 near Oakland Road, and helping to prevent access to doing that. So I don't know if that's a Lindsay or a Victor,
Yes.
but the question is about tagging on the railroad crossing, which isn't really totally part of this project, but since you're here, and give you an opportunity to help these folks out and understand what your policies are regarding that. I think they're hoping that you would make it harder to be able to do that.
Lindsay will take that question.
Great, Lindsay.
All right, I will do my best to answer it, and then I will turn it over to Freba and Victor to help out if I missed anything. But yeah, we do have, while it's not a part of this project specifically, and I was just looking on Google Earth to try to get more familiar with this issue, looking at Street View. We do have a customer service portal at Caltrans. It's csr.dot, as in Department of Transportation, .ca, california.gov, and it's there that people can enter specific information, post miles or latitude and longitude, specific locations on a map. and describe the nature of the request. And then that will go into our maintenance crews that will go into their work log, and they can follow up and visit that area and see what solutions may need to be implemented if there are access issues. So I will turn it over to Victor and Fariba to see if they have anything else to add.
That was perfect. You said exactly what I was going to say, Lindsay, about the CSR link. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So hopefully folks got a chance to write that down and take access to it. And is there a Google phrase, Victor, that if people weren't fast enough, would they Google something like customer service at Caltrans and it would come up?
Yeah, that's actually it. If you Google customer service request with Caltrans, the CSR link will pop up.
Wonderful. Great. Well, I know it's been an issue in the city for some years. And so I think this is a two-part question, one about, you know, the issue of the graffiti, and second is what could be done to make that less accessible. So thank you for answering that. I have a couple more questions. One is an possibility of extending the project study area. So can the project study area be expanded along heading to 10th Street, North 10th Street? There'll be a huge impact on this area of drivers coming into the neighborhood. Southbound traffic off of 101 will try and cut down 17th, 15th, and 13th. And those are our odd numbered streets that are slightly wider in that area. Heading should also be widened from 101 to North 10th to help offset the cut through traffic. So Rodney, is there any possibility of extending the project study area? Are you aware of this issue? Can you help expand on some sort of answer for our questions here?
Yeah, well, again, we looked at establishing the project study area where it was where we thought there would be an impact, especially to traffic signals. Again, people that normally exited to and from Oakland Road, travel down, going southbound, they travel down to 13th. So again, that intersection of Oakland Road and heading and 13th is in the project study area. But again, we need to, try to, the project study area can't just keep growing and growing and growing and growing. We have to try to keep it focused on areas that are going to have a direct impact. And so that's why the project study area basically encompasses Oakland Road to heading and the intersection at 13th. And we'll be studying all of the intersections along heading between 13th going all the way to 17th and beyond. So again, all of those will be part of the traffic analysis that we'll be doing to make sure that any traffic that the project redirects from Oakland to Berryessa will be accommodated acceptably in the area.
Thank you. Now I've got a couple of topics that I'm going to ask in a row that are somewhat tangential to this project. In other words, they're not really covered by the project elements, but people are curious about them. And perhaps Lindsay and Fariba could take a couple, particularly this one about the flooding on 101, which many people are familiar with. And the question is, will the water spring that floods the 101 between 880 and Oakland Road be addressed with this project? The water table floods the road surface in this area. And so perhaps Caltrans, I think you're aware of it. So I don't know if you want to kick it off. And I do not believe that this project is covering potentially a fix for that particular topic. So is there something that District 4 is looking at?
I can take this question, Eileen.
Thanks, Fariba.
Well, I don't think that this project addresses this matter. We do have a project at Caltrans to address this issue at this location. So we started the project, and we are at the project initiation document, which is the first stage of programming a project. And we are studying this issue, and we're gonna have a project to address this matter, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you for answering it. The next one is probably a city potentially a city question. Again, I don't think it's part of our project to be dealing with this issue. And the question relates to fuel tanker trucks and the fueling that occurs at the fuel depot at Mayberry and Berryessa. And this person is having the question, the constant flow of large double fuel tanker trucks accessing the fuel depot at Mayberry and Berryessa is a time bomb waiting to happen. How do we make this safer? So Rodney, I'm going to start with you. I do not believe this is this particular topic is addressed in any of your designs, and then I'm going to ask Neil to also address this as far as anything the city might be looking at as far as any plans about the fueling station. Rodney?
Yeah, we currently plan to not have any impact on the fueling station as far as access to it. As far as longer term plans, I guess whether the fueling station has any plans to move or be closed, I think I better hand that one over to Neil.
Neil, can you enlighten us?
Yeah, as of right now, we'll take it into account, but this project, as Rodney mentioned, it won't be per se dealing with the actual tankers, but they will take into account the safety aspect throughout the whole corridor, just in terms of vehicle mobility, multimodal uses and such. But currently, we'll just take that into account when doing our studies as well.
Well, I have the city here. This is a question that relates to maintenance. And it's really a two-part question. One is related to the actual environmental document itself. So Carrie, you'll get the first part of this question, and then perhaps the city can also add to the answer. So the question is, does an EIR consider maintenance of bike lanes as part of the impact of reducing car travel? The current bike lanes around the Berryessa BART station and the Mayberry overpass are full of glass and debris, making them less inviting to cyclists. So one, is that something that's considered and written up as part of the environmental document? And Neil, what are the maintenance frequencies that the city works on with regard to cleaning up the bike lanes in the city? First Carrie, then Neil.
Thank you, Eileen. So maintenance per se is not directly baked into the environmental impact report. However, any designs that are put forth and proposed as part of the project will be done in concert with the City of San Jose and Caltrans. And so we will be working continuously with the City of San Jose to ensure that any designs that are proposed can be maintained, whether that comes with the right color of paint or infrastructure or posts, whatever components are needed, that the City of San Jose can commit to maintaining those bike lanes to the level that's appropriate so that they are safe and usable and low stress for all users. And I think I'll pass it on to Neil to comment a little bit more about the current state of the bike lanes and what's planned for infrastructure improvements for over the length of the project.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. And again, maintenance wise, we do provide regular street sweeping done throughout the area, depending on if it is maintained by the city or maintained by not Caltrans, but the BART station, since that's the specific one that they're mentioning. But again, you can always reach out to project team, and we can bring that up to our maintenance crews for if there's any issues in that area currently.
I think the way I'm reading this question is that there are.
Yeah. So
yeah.
We'll definitely bring this up to our maintenance crews then as well.
Yeah. They're often full of glass and debris, making them less attractive. All right, I'm going to ask a quick question that I think is easy to answer, but perhaps not. Rodney, it's a right-of-way question. Would the added lane on heading from the interchange to 13th require taking houses on one side of the street?
No, currently all of our designs do not have any right-of-way impacts on the sidewalks or the local streets. So we're trying to work within the existing footprint from curb to curb with all of our alternatives.
Great. And we do have some more traffic questions, but before I get back to those, I wanted to there was another question that had to do with zoning. Is the city of San Jose looking at changing the zoning in any of the areas that are going to become more pedestrian bike friendly, that are going through the heavy industrial areas? So someone's wondering if this is going to trigger a zoning change. So Neil?
So currently, we're not looking at changing the zoning as part of this project. This project, again, will study and provide improvements on ped and bike improvements as part of the project. But currently, we'll work with our city staff to see whether there's a need for a change zoning. But as of right now, it's not part of this project.
Okay. And before I get back to, and I just want to remind you, we are here until 8. So if somebody's been waiting to ask their question, I would suggest that you start typing them in. We still do have a few to go. But I just want to remind you that we are closing the meeting at 8 o'clock. And I do see that some folks have already left the meeting. So I just wanted to remind you that if you have a question, please start typing those in so we can make sure and cover those before we adjourn this evening. And again, we really appreciate your attendance, and we appreciate those of you who have stayed this late. And we're going to try and get to everybody's question this evening. So here's one. There was hearing that there's a possibility that the Naval Reserve may close. Is anyone aware of that? And is that property going to be impacted? So Neil, I'm going to ask you about that one as well, and then we'll move back to traffic questions.
Yeah, I'm currently not aware of that, but we'll work with our team at the city to see what the impacts are in regards to that. But I don't believe we are, as Rodney had mentioned, we're not impacting the property itself. We're going to do as much as possible to keep it within the limits of our project.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're back to traffic patterns. In the concept plan, would vehicles be merging onto northbound 101 at Berryessa and other vehicles still be exiting at Oakland? Isn't that a conflict over a short distance?
Yeah, well, as part of the alternatives that we'll be studying, there is a way to use braided ramps, so you could separate an off ramp and an on ramp so that they do not conflict. But that's correct. I mean, if the interchanges are so close, then really we're creating a weaving area if they're on the same pavement. So as part of the alternatives that we'll be studying, we'll be looking at all of those scenarios and then identifying them operationally in the traffic operation analysis report.
Caltrans certainly wouldn't want to create conflicts there on their facility.
No,
so
not good.
Not good, right? So great question. Okay, in selecting Berryessa versus Mayberry, are you considering the traffic going between 101 and it's 680, it says. Using Berryessa would be a straight line, while using Mayberry would generate heavy traffic at traffic lights for Jackson Capitol or Lundy King. So again, we're not talking about 880, we're going between 101 and 680. So basically cutting east-west through these neighborhoods. The question is, are you looking at that? Berryessa would be a straight line, while Mayberry would have a lot of traffic lights. So I don't know if that's an Ashley question or a Rodney question.
Oh, it's an Ashley question.
Okay, Ashley, can you address that?
Before I dive into this, I do just want to add to the last question for those that are unclear of what braided ramps look like, but that live in the area. You can essentially look at the interchange between McKee, Julian, and Santa Clara, where the merging and diverging happens separate from the freeway facility. It would be something similar to that, just for context.
So once you get off, you don't have the opportunity to mix in with the other folks. That's great. Thank you for flagging that, Ashley.
So as for the question about the connection between 101 and 680, this will be something that is included in our environmental analysis, and any sort of travel shifts or travel pattern changes that may occur as a result of this interchange will be studied as part of the environmental document, and that does include this potential connection to 680. So the commenter is correct that if we were to add an interchange at Berryessa, it is a direct connection between 680 and 101. However, if we were to add it at Mayberry, given that there is not a interchange at 680 in Mayberry, that there is not necessarily a direct connection. However, you know, people who are on 10 or on 680 looking to potentially bypass congestion on 680 currently use Mayberry and then weave through, or, you know, merge through local streets to get to their destination, whether that be on or off of 101 or a local destination as well. And so that would likely continue regardless of the location of this interchange, if it were at Berryessa or Oakland, or sorry, or Mayberry. But it is something that will be evaluated in further detail in the environmental document.
Great. Well, I'm out of questions, Patty. If we can get back to the slide, which shows everyone how to put those questions in the Q&A function. And then also, there we go. Thank you so much. So just a reminder, if you have not yet done so, at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to click around and find those little thought bubbles. And if you click on them, you'll get a screen as you see there, and you can type in, and we'll get you added to our list. And then thank you, Patty. If we could go to the, if we're all out of questions this evening, I do want to flag again for everybody how you can make your comments official. And also to make sure that you can see that the period closes on February 4th, but that our project email will stay live through the rest of this construction project if this project does move forward and there is a build alternative chosen. And then how you can comment either by sending an email to that email at caltransdot.ca.gov, to write to Daniel at his office, to fill out our form on our website, or to use the 1-800-795-7455 number and leave a message. And I've been instructed that if you do choose to use the voice mail option, please speak slowly so that we can make sure that your comments are taken word for word and people can understand you know, all the words that you're using, because they'll be transcribing that to put it into the record. So I'm going to give you just another minute to add a question or two, and then we may adjourn a little early this evening for those of you who are wanting to get off and have an evening, perhaps even eat dinner if you haven't already. Here is another question that has come in. I am hopeful that the Mabury-Berryessa ramps will trim traffic that now cut through the north side neighborhood. Many cars take 21st to cross between Heading and Taylor over the Julian Street ramps. And then this person has made a note, the speed humps in March should slow that. They're hopeful, I guess. Will there be traffic studies per street, or what surrounding the smaller neighborhood streets are being studied? So Ashley, if you could speak to, you know, how you do the traffic studies, and particularly the north side neighborhood, which is on the west side of 101.
Sure. So so this really, the neighborhood traffic calming is something that we would work closely with the city of San Jose on, given that there are concerns in the neighborhood that have been ongoing for several years. We want to make sure that we're addressing the concerns that have been made to the city, while also addressing any shifts in travel patterns that may be associated with this project. But as for the actual study itself, we will likely evaluate any potential increase in traffic on each of the roadways associated with this project, and then work with the city to identify any potential mitigations, such as traffic calming or speed humps, as mentioned on 21st, that may be applicable for the roadways that we anticipate to experience an increase in traffic.
Thank you. Now we have a question about someone who's wondering if they submit attachments to the email address, whether those would be reviewed and considered part of the submission. And I believe the answer is yes, but I'm going to have Lindsay and Carrie confirm that. So Lindsay, the Caltrans email that we're giving out this evening does have the capability of the attachments coming through, I think, your system, and they would be logged in as well. And if you and Carrie can confirm that, please.
Yes, we can accept attachments, and we will review all comments received.
Great. And Carrie, I know you're going to be looking at everything we get.
Yes, we will be looking at everything we get. I also want to put, and a somewhat related topic, I just want to remind everyone that the circulation for the draft environmental document will be in 2024. And we absolutely sincerely hope that everyone that has attended tonight's meeting will continue to, first, will submit formal comments, and secondly, will continue to follow the developments of the project and also attend our draft environmental document circulation public hearing meeting so that we can continue to keep you engaged and receive meaningful comment and feedback from you so that we can incorporate that into the draft environmental document and ultimately the final environmental document as well. Thank you.
Great, Carrie. Okay, Neil, there's a question here. Is there a chance that this project would not be fully funded?
So right now it isn't, but of course this project has been a top priority for the city and the surrounding community, and we will be prioritizing funding as a result. As you guys are aware, project is currently funded by both the VTA's Measure B and local funds in anticipation and support of this project. And also I feel like this project is well positioned to receive federal funding from the recently approved federal infrastructure bill, which will help in trying to avoid having delays in funding and construction of this project.
So someone has asked, what is the February 4th cutoff date? And again, that is for our formal comments into the scoping part of the project. So this is a good time to get your comments in about which intersections you want to make sure the team is aware of and should study, any other issues that you want to make sure the team is aware of that relate to all the topics in the environmental process. And Carrie, if you wanted to expound on why there's a need for a cutoff date and why you picked February 4th, which by the way is a Friday. And so at the end of the day, on that day, she'll be closing the comment period and working with Caltrans to assemble all those comments. And if you want to just speak a little bit about what you do after that.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Thanks, Eileen. So as part of our California Environmental Quality Act and our National Environmental Quality Act process, formal scoping, especially under CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act is a particular time marker and a part of the process for the CEQA documentation. So all projects that have environmental documents under CEQA need to have a formal scoping period so that the public has an opportunity to comment on their concerns, to comment on what types of topics are covered, or comment on the methodology or processes that we're using to approach our analyses for the environmental document. Our scoping period began on January 3rd. We had a number of newspaper announcements as well as email blasts that went out from the city, as well as Twitter, Facebook, Nextdoor on a variety of Caltrans as well as the City of San Jose accounts. The standard scoping period for a project of this scope and scale is 30 days. So January 3rd to February 4th marks our 30-day period. We will have a similar period for receiving formal comments for the draft environmental document that again will also be a statutory 30-day period unless the city decides to have a different, to extend that a little longer. But right now that's sort of how the period works. Now, to get to Eileen's question of, well, what do we do once we receive these comments, right? So we will be taking those formal comments, analyzing them, working together as a project development team. As Rodney mentioned very early in tonight's presentation, the project development team is comprised of Caltrans staff, City of San Jose leadership, as well as their consultants, for which I am a part of that team. And we'll look at the footprint of the project description. We'll make sure our project purpose and need matches what we hear back from feedback. And then we'll begin to make sure, we will finalize the project description, lock down the purpose and need for the project, and then we will begin initiating our environmental technical studies that will begin their in-depth environmental analysis for the project according to those technical areas that we talked about in the slide: paleontology, biology, traffic, etc. And that will then, those technical studies will be reviewed by the City of San Jose and Caltrans, approved and signed off on, and then our environmental team will begin to incorporate and summarize those technical studies into the draft environmental document. And then we'll lead right into the draft circulation of the document, which with the ultimate goal of selecting a single preferred alternative, leading then to the final environmental document. So a little longer probably explanation that you needed, Eileen, but I thought I'd just go over the general process while I had the chance. Thank you.
No, that's great. And if you wanted to put a date again for when that draft environmental document would be available, and whether or not there'll be any public update meetings between now and then, or when then might be.
Right. So we're anticipating a late winter of 2024 for the circulation of the draft environmental documents. And as we lead up to that process, there'll be a number of community stakeholder meetings. We will be encouraging the City of San Jose, as well as encouraging Caltrans to post updates. For example, as we're getting close to the circulation of the draft environmental document, more announcements will be out on Twitter and Nextdoor and Facebook, letting people know that we're getting ready to circulate that draft environmental document, that the review period is open or will be becoming open at a particular period in time. And then we will also be holding selected what we call pop-up events, local events, where we may have a table or a booth with some fact sheet information available. That is, of course, dependent on the Omicron and any other variants that may creep upon us for COVID. But if we can't do in-person events, we will be looking for other opportunities to meet with HOAs or local community meetings that are held virtually to present, again, this information on the project. So thank you, Eileen.
And before I let you go, we have another question that is your question, I think, which is, and I think we've been very clear, but perhaps there needs to be a little bit more about the why, Carrie. This person's asking whether tonight's questions will all be entered into the scoping comment period. And we've tried to make it clear that no, this is more of a dialogue and trying to get more of an education and sharing of information, and that the comments that are formally entered would have to be entered through the mechanisms you see up on the screen, that 1-800 number, those two electronic ways, or the mail station up in Oakland, writing to Daniel in a regular letter. And Carrie, if you want to explain a little bit about why we don't just take this Q&A stream and consider it submitted.
Right, I'm happy to do so. Thank you. So the way I like to explain this during public meetings is this conversation, this dialogue and this question and answer that we're having right now this evening is very much equivalent to an in-person meeting, where you would walk into a scoping meeting and walk around, and perhaps there'd be posters around the room, and there would be individual technical experts stationed at those posters, and you could ask those individual questions. We might not even ask you what your name is. We would just take your question and answer it casually. Maybe some other experts would walk over, or some other people would join the group and ask a follow-on question. So it's very much part of an informal dialogue as part of a basic open house. And so those comments are not formally submitted comments for which we can put into the record. So that's why we're strongly encouraging everyone who's here this evening to put your questions and comments and concerns in a written format. Again, you can submit them via email, via the project email, or the project comment form on the City of San Jose's website. You can submit them by voice using the 800 number that's shown on the screen right now, or you can write us an old-fashioned letter and send that into Caltrans, and then we can take those formal comments and make them part of the record, and they will show up then as part of the comments that, you know, the types of comments that we've received during the scoping period. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Neil, there's a question here about project cost. Is there an estimated project cost for the project?
Yeah, so right now we're developing multiple alternatives, and at the high end, it's at 227 million. But again, this is just preliminary. The cost could definitely go down, but it could also potentially go up. But we basically worked on the estimate so that it will provide an accurate assessment, basically.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, we're coming to the end of the questions that have come in so far. We're at about 5 minutes to go in the meeting. And we really appreciate people having participated. I just want to give you one more opportunity to add some questions through the Q&A. *9 if you're a caller, but I have been checking with our folks on the backside of putting this meeting on tonight, and we didn't have anybody who needed that accommodation. Hopefully our interpreters are still keeping up with us, and we really appreciate the service that they provide. And hopefully people have enjoyed having that accommodation and ability to participate in this evening's meeting in those languages, which is very important in the city of San Jose, which is quite a diverse community. And so we appreciate everybody who can attend and be part of a meeting like this. So I'm not seeing new questions coming in. It's been a great meeting. We still do have some attendees, about half of as many as we started with. So I think people are feeling that they've had their questions answered and know how to submit their formal comments if they choose to do that. And our team would very much encourage you to do so. And just giving you just another minute or two, because we did notice the meeting to go to 8 o'clock. So we are wanting to make sure that we're still on air, so to speak. And just to, again, remind you that that website that you see above the yellow box here is the website for the project, and this PowerPoint and the video will be uploaded next week. And so people can also bookmark it, I hope, and check back, because we'll be putting up project updates, as Carrie mentioned, materials as they're developed, and certainly we'll be promoting the draft environmental document meeting that will occur when the draft is available for public review. And we hope that everybody participates in that meeting. And as Carrie mentioned, the team does have the ability to go out and interact with groups in the community. If you have a group that you would like to have a speaker for, you can go onto that website and use that comment form to let us know about your group, and someone will follow up with you and provide a speaker. And we're happy to have that interaction with the community between now and the time that the document's available for public circulation, and during that time frame as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting feedback in all different ways and keeping the community posted. And as Carrie said, of course, some of this still has in virtual because of Omicron and perhaps what's next, but perhaps we'll also be able to do the pop-ups and be at various community locations. The project team was at the flea market and has had plans to do some other pop-ups in the neighborhoods. And in fact, at Watson Park, perhaps. So you may see us if you're dog owners and get over to Watson Park. So as you can tell, I'm just kind of waiting to see if we have any more questions that come in through our Q&A function, and I'm not seeing those. So perhaps, I don't know if Neil, if you wanted to make some closing remarks on behalf of the city and thank our attendees, and then perhaps we can adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen. And yeah, we just really appreciate your guys's input. As Eileen mentioned, you can always comment as seen on the screen below. Just any input is very helpful. So we definitely will appreciate your input on this project, and we look forward to continuing to work with you guys to make this project a successful one. So thank you all for attending.
Yeah, and thank you, those of you who are representing agencies. I now see that we've got the California Highway Patrol in attendance, so that's nice. They have an interest. And as I already mentioned, you've got your ETA. We've had the council districts that are very engaged on this and helped us get the word out. And we had water district represented. So this is a very project that's of high interest to the community. And we do appreciate your participation. And we'll wish you a safe and happy spring. And looking forward to seeing you at our next meeting. And with that, we stand adjourned.